Okay.
Right, oh, really? See, you're aging well.
Nice.
Just gain a little bit of weight and just stay
All right, Zoom folks, welcome in.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you? 4 stories, 20 units.
Okay,
So.
You know.
we are live. We're
Good, how
in
are you?
Good to
action.
see you, Stuart.
Hey, man.
My
Good.
I just sped over here. It is a Zoom link. I was like, I
You know, it's
was really
better-
confused.
It's better in person. This is not yours, is it?
No, I think it's yours.
Good.
I moved it down, so it's yours.
All right, I think we're ready to go. Thanks for bearing with us for the technical difficulties. Thanks, Amanda. This experience is sponsored by Amanda. That's always true. Amanda does
Enjoy,
everything.
everyone.
Thank you. She sets everything up and makes me look how I look,
Excellent.
for better or worse on a given day. Welcome for those who are here and those who are here. It looks like we've got like 40 people all told. I am going to be sending follow-up resources after every class. It includes the slides that we're going to be going through, as well as a PDF copy of the Shift book. I'm also going to be giving away a couple of these today. So if you're on Zoom, please drop your email address in the chat. And if you are here in person, Sam, would you mind circulating the sign-in sheet there? That'll enable me to follow up and send you the resources that we'll be talking through. I'm Mark Sandvig. I think I've met everybody and know everyone in some form or fashion. I'm the team leader of Keller Williams Legacy Group, and I get the privilege of working with a lot of the fantastic people who are here and there. And part of my job is helping us think about the things we should be thinking about in any market, but particularly this market. But I'm not the star of the show today. Darcy, give us a little bit about who you are.
Goodness. Okay, well, I've been licensed since the end of '95, and I have 4 kids. And well, here's big news, breaking news. I'm going to be a grandma. And okay, well, I'll give you the short version.
Yeah.
So I started out answering phones at Realty Executives. It was my dad's company. Got my license while I was in college and thought it was just a short-term thing, and liked it, and then worked as my dad's admin, and then decided to become a buyer's agent, and then decided I was making him too much money, and went out on my own. And then the recession happened, and I did about 17 flips with investors because there was nothing else to do. And that's when I was joking about eating peanut butter sandwiches out of the back of my car and scrubbing toilets. And then started working with Howard Hanna. I actually did a little stint with Remax International where I sold franchises for Southern and Northern Ohio. And then decided to go into management. And I did that for about 3 years. And then realized everybody was making more money than me. So I went back into sales. And so I've been doing that, I guess, since 2013.
Okay. Wow. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We are here today, but also as part of a series. So I realize a lot of people are like, what is this about? I'm here because Darcy's here and that's it, or here because Sam brought some great food, that's it. We're here, and I'm stealing this line from a training that a few of us went to last week. We're here because we're serious about winning. And what has worked over the last really 11 years, some of that stuff remains true. There's certain timeless truths that will always be true about winning in real estate. And some of it's going to require a different level of focus or different tactics in order to win. So this isn't a one-off hearing from things that Darcy has done or ideas from one chapter of a book. It's for folks who are saying, hey, I want to win regardless of the market. I'm committed to doing what it takes in that market. And part of that involves learning content, but also rubbing shoulders with other people that are committed to doing the same thing. So this is part 1 of a 12-week series. And even I get intimidated as I say that, like, oh man, we're gonna be doing this until Thanksgiving, literally. The day before Thanksgiving will be our final class. So keep that day free.
With drinks.
What's that?
With drinks.
With drinks. Hey,
Thank
are
you,
you
Antonio.
mixing?
Last one.
It's only right.
You heard it here. I believe you.
I didn't say I'd buy, I said I'd mix.
Okay, that's fair. So yeah, this is the first 5. We're going to be joined by Dominic next week, Stephanie, who's based in the greater Mansfield area, Angel from DeHoff, Ginger from Cutler, and then week 6 through 12. Darcy's coming back, week 9. You're a glutton for punishment. Jose's going to talk, Amy Guthrie, Melissa Sanford, Cindy, Sam Holmes, Melissa Steiner, Mercedes, Tina, Lance, and Tracy. And basically, we want to be committed to learning and growing together and winning in this market. I'd love to hear briefly, we have like probably 6 different brokerages represented here. We have folks that are new in their last year and change. Year this month, happy anniversary. And those who've been at it since Michael Jordan was winning championships, and maybe even before that. Dominic, when did you get your license?
I took my test at the end of '87,
Okay.
flunked it, and I passed February 1 of '88, so I've been full-time since 1988,
Okay.
which is 34 years and 8 months. And this
Who's
is,
counting?
this is the 6th shift.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go. So whether you're brand new, this series is it's not going to be real estate 101 on how to do the nuts and bolts. It's more how does what we're doing need to be different or the same. But I'd love to hear from a few of you, and I'll even keep an eye on the chat on Zoom. Anyone have other things that or things that they're hoping to get out of this series, this class? What are you hoping to learn? Why are you here?
I just saw who was on, for lack of better terms, dias, whatever the word is, and thought that was some really good people. Like when I'm out, I represent mostly buyers in my first year, and I see, Darcy's name out there. I see Ginger's name. I see Dom everywhere. Jose obviously does pretty well himself, and just thought those are some good people to learn from. And I was at the shift last week with someone from KW. I thought, okay, like this is a little bit longer. Let's commit and hunker down and learn a lot.
Awesome. Glad you're here. Who else?
Well, I saw Darcy, so obviously I wanted to support her. But I saw the word shift. So I guess my biggest thing was what's happening right now, because it's pretty challenging, I guess, as a listing agent more. Because I think we were all extremely spoiled with what just happened. And now I've got houses sitting. So that's really challenging to try to explain to a seller right now, like, they drop the price or something's happening. And so I'm here to hear that really, to the challenge of explaining to a seller why things are not flying off the market like they thought.
I had an appointment this morning where one of the final takeaways was the one skill you need to get right now is helping to manage seller expectations.
Yes.
If there's nothing else that you're able to do, being able to do that presumes you have listings, which is a different conversation. But yeah, great point. Maybe 2 others? Stephanie? Ben Stewart?
Obviously, I just started my own team, so I'm growing and learning. I've been in the business for 20 years, but only been licensed for a few years. I've been through the shifts, but never as a realtor. So I'm only as good as the knowledge that I can provide my buyers. So that's why I'm here.
That's great. Stuart, then Dominic.
I'm just here to be around people that are smarter than me.
Yeah.
And
You're in
learn
the
from.
Me.
I think I'm really a smart person, but I just think that, I watched how my mom led her career, and, she did a lot of listening and not a lot of talking. She talks a lot to me, but I don't listen to her. But I just, I think it's smart to not have an adversarial type of relationship with other agents. We all work together and we benefit from having this, we grow together and we earn together. So that's why I'm here.
You are pretty smart.
I'd say so. Stuart was an engineer in a previous life.
Yeah, I used to listen to your mom a lot. She was wise
Well, she
too.
goes way back with your dad and everything.
Wait,
so.
who's your mom?
Connie Babcock.
Connie Babcock.
Shut your mouth.
Isn't that awesome?
Get out of here. I love Connie.
Yeah.
Greg,
You're
I said
still
that.
this, you're only this big.
I want, yeah. I'm 30, I'll be 36 in December now.
Isn't that crazy?
I
I
will.
can't believe that.
Well, she retired, we were gonna work together, and then 3 months after I got licensed, she said, I'm on. And now she runs an assisted living facility up in Fairlawn, so.
That's awesome.
That's Connie.
And now her clients are starting to come to me, and
There we go.
being prepared for that is very important, because
Absolutely.
she had a very good reputation, and I don't wanna let her down either, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you are doing amazing.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that.
Dominic, how about you?
I would just say, from all the years of doing it and getting abused a lot, it's an emotional business. And when we go through the ups and downs of the business, sometimes, you know, like we have to work with each other, even though we're sort of on opposite ends of the fence, but we have a common goal. So the win-win scenario, whatever that is for you and your clients, we want to do it and not destroy our relationships, because really, like, sometimes, like you guys will know, as you get going, you hear a name in the business, you're like cringe.
Mhm.
Or you hear a name in the business, like, oh, I love working with that person. So you want to be that person, you know? So sometimes, like, I'll just tell you one quick story. There was this company called Spike Kramer way back when, and this lady was 4'9". I don't know if any of the old timers.
I know who you're talking about.
I do
That's
too.
what I'm- Yeah.
I do too.
So my very first listing I had was, of course, overpriced. And the lady I had was a little neurotic, so she wanted me to be at every showing. And it was my first big listing. It was like 220,000. Probably should have been like 189.9 or 159.9, who knows? And so I show up at the showing, this short, nice, quiet lady can cut your throat, shows up, and she goes, you could just wait in the car. So I open the door, she goes in, and then when she comes out, she walks away. And I said to her, I go, hey, you know, me being the new guy, had no clue. I said, well, how'd it go? She walked over to my car and she goes, well, first of all, it should be torn down and sold for land value only, and your broker should have never let you take it. Now, how do you think that impacted me?
Yeah.
That was my first interaction with like a God agent. You know what I'm saying? So as an agent, as you become more successful, you gotta be more humble, you gotta be more sensitive. And here's the thing, we're all in it together.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
And there's plenty of business for everybody. Perception is not the reality. Our job is to make sure we articulate the reality of the shifting market, because like they right away will say, you know what, my neighbor said, my cleaning lady said, this person said, they're now the expert. So they take the power away. So you have to understand how to kind of articulate that. And that's the art of the business. It's a
Mhm.
personality thing, and it's a whole nother conversation.
Yep, we got a couple of people chiming in online. Jillian said, I'm here for creative ideas on how to manage clients' expectations as well as my own. I've been licensed for only 4 years. I'm not experienced to ship before. Holly said, how to explain what's happening to sellers as well as pricing in this market. Gina chimed in, I'm here to learn from other agents. I've only been in this for less than a year, so I still have much to learn. Never been through a shift before, and I'm eager to learn more about this and how other agents handle it. Raise your hand if you've not been through a shift before. See if we line up with
As an agent or?
as an agent. Okay, we are more experienced than average. I learned last week that 85% of agents have only existed, been licensed, sold in, have never been licensed in a buyer's market before. We've only ever known a seller's market, which is pretty wild. Almost 9 out of 10 agents out there are not familiar with what we're beginning to dip into. Cool, that's helpful. I'd also, just as we're getting started in this series, I know that everyone's busy. Every week is different. You've got appointments and schedules and inspection, timing to manage, all of that. But I'd like for you to at least consider committing to the full 12 weeks, simply because today's going to be a lot of groundwork, mindset, what skills do we need to have? And then the following 11 weeks are going to be practical. How do we manage expenses? What does internet lead conversion look like? What does nurturing our sphere look like? It's going to be really practical each week. And so I'd love for you all to consider coming to all of them. The locations will rotate. And so bear with us there. 4 of them are going to be here. A couple of them are going to be Zoom only, and then a handful of them will be at our offices in Canton. So whether you're with KW or not, all are welcome to all. All right. Darcy, as we get started, and we're jazz musicians here. We talked things through yesterday, and we're going to improvise together.
Okay.
So as you think about your first shift,
Mhm.
we're going to be talking about mindset today, perspective, and then we're going to be talking a little bit about skills. Talk about the mindset that you had to come around to in your first major shifting moment. When was that? When did you get hit with the reality that, oh, this is different than what it was before, and how did you adapt to that?
I guess I always hesitate because I'm like, do I give you the long version or the short version? But I guess I'll give you the medium. It was probably like right as things were turning, and my dad, I think, moved to Florida, and so he was kind of like, I'm out. I'm going to go work in Florida. And he said, you know, like, just take the listings that I have and take the listings that you have and see what you can do. And so I had 45 listings, and that sounds wonderful right now, but it was horrific back then, right? When you know,
This is 07?
this would have been like 08 probably, when market times were, I don't know, I have it written down and it's so upsetting, I don't even want to look at it, because I brought it with me, but it was like 140 days, maybe it was your average market time, and on average homes were selling for maybe like 91%. So the negotiating that was happening and the brutality of it, and feeling like you had to call your clients once a week and tell them the same thing. You always felt like the Grim Reaper when you met with people. Everybody would ask you about the market and there wasn't nothing fun to say. Meanwhile, I'm broke, you know, because everything that I'd been warned about 1982 had gone, 1982 was so long ago, and I had been doing well for a long enough period of time that I felt pretty comfortable with it. So I bought the expensive car and I did some stupid things thinking I'm good. And I was good until, you know, things started getting called and interest rates started going up and income was going down, and it got really scary for a hot minute. And at that time, I think, and I kind of already knew it, but I realized I really wasn't a big deal. Like, you know, I was, you know, in my early 20s and I was doing well. Maybe I was in my late 20s, I don't even know. Anyway, but I was doing well and I was feeling pretty good about myself, thinking I was a little bit of a big deal. And then, you know, I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit, but it was kind of like, you're just a real estate agent from Canton, Ohio, get a grip. And I had that realization, but then when the shift really started to happen and the peanut butter sandwiches out of the back of my car and scrubbing repo toilets, I was not a big deal. I had traded in the fancy car for the cheap car and cried driving away with it. And realizing that the most important thing I needed to do was keep my expenses low so that I never was in that position again. And really at that point, recognizing that the way I was spending my money before, whether it was with, you know, big advertising in the repository or the Homes magazine or whatever dumb thing I was doing, was really more about vanity and not necessarily about profit.
Sure.
So looking at what was actually profitable, and what was profitable was connecting with more and more people and making them feel good, and that's free. And getting over myself.
Did you, because the truth is, the ugly truth is that as markets shift, and we don't know how deep it'll go, and this isn't 05, 06, 07, this isn't 80,
no, not at all.
81, like it's a different economic moment, and
Right.
nobody has a crystal ball, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as either of those situations
no.
were. But the reality is that when the market shifts, people get out. And there's maybe a mixed blessing in that for those who are confident that they'll stay through. But for you, you were already, you know, a big deal at that point. Did you have moments of like, is this even worth it? Like, what am I even doing?
Heck yeah. Yeah, I thought about waitressing again. I was like, I liked waitressing. And I think it was more just panic induced. You know, I think everybody, no matter what you do in the business, sometimes they'll think like, that's it, forget it, I quit. I'm going to do something else. But these are velvet handcuffs. We have a really cool gig. And so you just got to like pick yourself up on those days and realize, it's going to be okay. It's just a bad day, a bad week, bad month, whatever, but it'll get better again. Because if you look at it over the long run, it's a great business.
So let's zoom in on that. What did practically picking yourself up each day?
Yeah.
I mean, those who win in this business, there's a lot of ways to stay busy in this business, and I got this going on, and without doing a whole lot of business. And those who do well focus on the things that are often hard to do. Talk about the motivation. Talk about, it's one thing to pick yourself up. How'd you do that?
I recognized that my home screen at that time was MSN, and it was constantly watching a ticker of the stock market. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's down 10%, it's down 14%, it's down, oh, now that's not a recession, that's depression. And I was freaking myself out. And I also realized my desk was facing an interior wall of my in my house. So one day I was like, what am I doing? And I got MSN off my lead and I put a picture of my family and I turned my desk around so I was facing outside. And it was like, it sounds silly, but it was little things like that. Like, what do I actually have control over? Because we think we have control over lots of things, but we really don't. So what do I have control over? Well, I have control over how I take care of myself, how I feel. I had time. So I started working out in the Y in the morning and I'd run into people. I haven't worked out there since, but I've kept the membership just in case. You never know.
Just like today.
But so I lifted weights and I felt, and I think I've always heard, that like, it's like kind of like a stool, it's like your physical, your emotional and your spiritual. And so it was like, what can I get in order? I really started delving more into my Bible studies at that time. I tried to connect more with people. I made a list that I still keep in my little black book somewhere around here of free things to do with my kids, things that didn't cost money, but were fun, ways that we could scrimp and save and things like that. And that all sounds goofy, but honestly, that's a great thing to have anyway, just ways to live that basically are a little bit more carefree. So that it wasn't high pressure, and vacations that we could go on that didn't necessarily cost money or things like that, because I didn't want to burden myself with any extra cost. So I think, so mindset wise, it was like, instead of looking at it from scarcity, looking at it more from like, there's all these other things though, and it's going to be okay. So.
Yeah. And I think that stuff may sound cheesy or, oh, sure. Yeah, of course I should work out more or whatever. But to your point you were hitting on a second ago, I would argue we can control two things each day. Our mindset, or how we view the world, and the choices, the decisions, the actions that we take within that. That's it. Like, we could say, all right, who's going to be in this business in 5 years? And a lot of you may raise your hands, but you don't actually know that.
Sure.
What you do know is, I'm waking up today and here's what I can choose to think about, and here's what I can choose to do.
Absolutely.
And if what I'm thinking about impacts what I do, then how I get into the right headspace by exercising, by shifting my desk location, may seem hokey, but that's totally logical if those flow together like that.
Yeah. I mean, my mom used to always say, if you were depressed, go take a shower, get dressed, put your makeup on, come back and talk to me after that. You know what I mean? It's like, look good, feel good, all that stuff that seems really hokey, but it's not hokey at all. So
let's connect that to activities within the business, because what you focus on, and we'll get into the content in a minute, I promise. Yesterday you said, eat the frog first. Talk about what that means, and talk about what that means specifically within your business.
Sure. So I make a list every day of all the things that I need to get done. And I was always taught, do the hard thing first. So if you got to swallow a bullfrog, don't look at it too long. And so, because if you get the hard things done first, the hard phone calls, I don't even know, my dad. Anyway, but if you get the hard things done first, everything after that's easy. But if you wait, that's hanging over your head all day. You know that call you have to make, like the deal fell through, but you don't want to call them and tell them, so you do everything else first?
Yeah.
Okay, that. You make that call first, you know what I mean? Or whatever the thing is that you.
Get it out of the way.
Just get it out of the way. So that. I don't know if I answered your question. That was, yeah, we talked about that, but anything else? No. Okay,
Well, piggybacking on that, one of the things that's important to understand in the shift. So as a real estate agent, you've got two jobs and only two jobs: generating business and servicing the business that you've got. Everything falls into those buckets. And if you think of something that's outside of that, stop doing it and pretending like you're being a real estate agent. Oh man, welcome. Hey, how are you? Good. And so in the market that we're in, we've been in a speed-based market. Hey, get into the house, be the first person to meet on the listing appointment, and odds are pretty good you're going to get that listing, because you're not going to have to prove that you're all that good, because the market's doing that work for you. We're shifting into a service or a skills-based market, which requires you to be better at what you do. But in this market, we've spent 80% of our time servicing the hands that were raised, wanting to do business, and 20% generating the business. And we'd argue that as the market shifts, you need to flip-flop those. So eating the frog, and we all know this, yeah, I know I need to do more lead gen. Eating the frog is lead gen. Talk with me about what that looked like for you in a buyer's market.
Oh gosh, I would be sitting, I remember sitting at like my son's little baseball games, and I would just go through my phone and call people and just, hey, how you doing? Or shoot them a text. And I wouldn't talk about real estate at all, like no real estate, just talk to them. They already know what I do. You know what I mean? They're just glad that you're following up with them or you're in touch with them. And I think that makes them feel good. I would reach out also, remember, like anytime I would get slow, like you have some people that that are successful people or people that really care about you, that care about your business. And sometimes I would reach out to those people. I remember I'd call them up and I'd be like, all right, listen, here's the position I'm in. I'm really not that busy. I'm not used to not being busy. What am I not thinking of? Like, you come from a different industry, but if you were me, what would you be doing right now? That sort of thing. Because they would help you to think outside of the box. And then they would tell you something about their industry that might apply. And it would give you just kind of fresh ideas. And that's all I wanted, was just give me something fresh. Tell me something different. And then not only that, once you ask somebody to help you, they want to help you. Now they're walking around all day thinking, what else could she do? What else could she do? Their mind is now raised to you and to real estate. And as they're talking to people, looking at things all day long, they're thinking, what can I do to help Darcy? That's a win-win, isn't it? And now all you did was you connected with them. So, and you're being vulnerable. And I think people appreciate vulnerability. So.
No, that's fantastic. And I think you perhaps had the benefit then of social media wasn't what it is now.
No.
And I think we fool ourselves into thinking that we're in touch with our people just because we're posting every couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could make a post saying, hey, who needs something, or anybody need a quote for X, Y, or Z, I can connect you to a guy. Like you're bringing value, but you're not bringing it honestly through relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you then it was, no, I'm going to get on the phone with this person who might be able to share some ideas because I genuinely want some ideas. This isn't like some fake facade. It was, I could use some insight.
Sure.
But it was happening over coffee and relationship,
Yeah.
which raises their consciousness to you.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. Let's dive in. I'm going to fly through some of this, and I'm going to send you all this for those who like to digest things. This is material from Keller Williams University. I didn't put this together. We're just utilizing it and commenting on it, and hopefully it benefits you. So kind of the big ideas that we'll be hitting on a bit. Our job as agents is to maintain perspective in the market, as well as, and we learned this last week, provide perspective in the market. As we engage with sellers who are, wait, I thought it would sell for 300 and it's been on the market for a month. This isn't what I expected. How do we provide perspective? It's not about panic, it's about perspective. It's about having an opportunity mindset. Anybody want to take a stab at what that might mean?
I think it's when you think you're down and things are failing, you look at it as a challenge, how to overcome it versus letting it destroy you and the momentum. It's figuring out how to turn that failure into an opportunity to be successful.
Yep.
Don't let it get you down.
Right. Third, we're going to hit on mastering skills. As I mentioned before, you got to get better. You can't, what was good enough to sell a house a year ago is not good enough to sell most houses in most communities at most price points in the market we're moving into. So sharpening your skills, putting systems in place, that's going to be the conversation, and getting in the game. So how's your market? When people are asking you that question now, how are you responding in this moment? You get coffee with someone this afternoon. How's the market? What's the response? I'd love to hear from a couple of you. I'll call Emily.
Say, well, if you need to buy a house, it's really good. Like, let's get into it, let's talk about your interest rates. I'll be connected with a loan officer. Anytime that you need to buy or sell a house is the time to buy or sell a house.
Sure.
I think the market is going to constantly fluctuate. So it really just depends on your needs.
Right. What else? Tony?
What they say, first of all, like you got to think, okay, we already understand this. If you don't, most of the time, unless you're in corporate relocation or military or something like that, most people between the age of 25 and 75 buy 3, maybe 4 homes. So they really don't know but what the headlines or what their friends and the cleaning ladies and people say, right? So that's what the battle is all the time, because a lot of times they just think it's about the commission if they're looking at like what your fee is and we're all the same. But I think if they say, how's the market? You say, well, what part of the market are you thinking about? Buying, selling, investing, renting? And you're trying to get a sense of where their head is.
Right.
And then you kind of can read their personality, and then you can kind of articulate it back to them based on not like, it's kind of like saying, where's my deal? I'm a hustler. People don't want to hear that. They want transactions and you're a hard worker. So it's just kind of like a play on things like that you have to understand as a service provider or a specialist in the field. But I just say, normally what it is, it's just a conversation. It depends, because like I could hear a headline in Arizona or Florida or California or, something like that that says, the market's down 20%, foreclosure up 180%. Well, if there's a 2-year moratorium on foreclosures and now we have 5 foreclosures, I guess we're up 500%.
Yeah.
So it's all relative. So I think that's what I mean by perception reality. So I think the baby step it in is you say, what part of the market are you thinking about?
Why do you ask?
And just you try to hone in on, well, we're kind of like thinking about retiring and, we hear that the houses are selling hotcakes, which, they're 6 months off the target, it stopped in April. It wasn't like that since April.
Yeah.
Unless you're in that hot pocket, which is a whole nother conversation.
You're making me hungry.
I'm sorry.
Well,
So anyhow.
Dom
I'm
nailed it
sorry.
too, like answer a question with a question. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Give me the information,
My
ask
wife
another
hates that
question.
when I do that.
Yeah, she loves that, right?
It gets me in trouble.
Why?
Yeah,
Well,
well,
shut up.
there's no such thing as the market. I mean, there is, but it's totally dependent on what that person is looking to do. Are you looking to sell your home? Are you looking to buy a home? Are you looking at picking up a second home? Are you looking at investing in an Airbnb?
Or they're curious because they're thinking about getting an equity line to put a pool in, or
Right.
pay for their kids' college, or pay for mom in the nursing home. There's all kinds of pain and suffering reasons why people do what they do.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Was there one other hand? One more? How's the market? Dom covered us, all right. I think from a perspective standpoint, we understand markets shift over time. If you've been licensed since 2011, and I'm obviously very much in that boat, we've experienced Brexit or March of 2020, but it's been sellers for a long period of time. The average market cycle is more like 5 to 7 years, and we're double into that. And so for us to remember, and as we're sitting with our clients, markets, they change. They are cyclical. There's nothing weird about what's happening right now, even if the circumstances are particular. And then change does equal opportunity, as we were talking about a minute ago. Law of supply and demand. So demand exceeds supply equals high prices. Supply exceeds demand equals low prices.
Can I step in for a
Please.
second on that one, if it's okay? I think that's where it's important for you to be able to give really specific answers. So study the MLS, look at the numbers, be really aware of, primarily in your target market, what the average days on market is, what percentage of sale to list, kind of what's happening. Look at what happened this month compared to that time last month. You and I have talked on the phone where I'll say, hey, Mark, did you notice blah, blah, blah. I love that stuff.
Yep.
So if somebody says to me, what's the market? I'm a fan of this thing called Trend Graphics, and Trend Graphics comes, it changes once a month, but basically to be able to say to someone, hey, 3 to 6 months would be like a healthy market at 3 to 6 months of inventory. Anything under 3 months is a seller's market. Back in March, when things were absolutely bonkers and we had 3% interest rates, we had 2 weeks of inventory in Starr County. And now that we have about 6% interest rates, we have about 1.2 months of inventory.
Right.
It is still a seller's market. It's a great time to be a seller still.
Right.
And on top of it, our if you look at Case-Shiller, we're up 16% over last year in the Cleveland metro market. That's amazing.
Dive into that. What does that mean, and why does it matter?
Why does it? But Case-Shiller is like a real estate index that's super interesting to pay attention to, because what it'll do is it'll look at any, I think it's like the 18 top markets in the United States, and to be able to compare, it'll look at houses that have sold, I think it's within 18 months. So if a property comes on the market and sells the same property, it's able to, so it can judge very specifically.
Right.
And so it's a really good indication. It's usually a little bit lags. It's a little bit of a 3-month lag time.
Right.
But like CoreLogic uses it, Zillow uses it. It's an interesting index, and you can take all kinds of data from that. I find it kind of overwhelming because I'm just a history major. Anyway, so I like CoreLogic because it gives me really much more specific data. And then using that same information, I can say, so what the nice part about that is, for a seller, now you have buyers that don't feel quite as rushed because there's a little bit more inventory out there. And as a seller also, when you're purchasing, it's going to be not quite as stressful. And on top of it, the rates are going to change again. There's going to be some other catastrophic event that's going to make the rates dive. So really it's all about getting the right property. And if you can get the right house right now. So, and then that way you could, because real estate is local. real estate is so local. And I think your shift book even talks about that, you know, that big movements, you know, happen a little bit more slowly. It's the local
Right.
things.
Right. Yeah.
And so you need to know your local market. So that you
National
can.
trends happen gradually, and national trends are what your people are reading the newspaper about.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know, sales drop, you know,
Who cares?
year over year by
Yeah.
1%. The sky is falling.
Who cares
There-
what happened in
people get-
Tampa, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that couldn't happen here, but Tampa's a wholly different market. And
Right.
sure, they're looking at the same interest rates as us. but
Sure.
It's important for your people to get from you, because they're not reading the local paper, who does that
Mhm.
anymore, what's actually happening in our market. And to
Yeah.
your point, we're going from the most insane seller's market in recent memory to just a seller's market.
Yeah.
So good news, Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We're in a seller's market. Oh, but I thought it was changing. Yeah, it's changing
Yeah.
from the most insane market that we've known in modern history to a market that homes are still selling faster than you'd expect. And there's data in the MLS to look at. We're at like 98% sale price to list price right now, or list price to sale price in Stark County, which is really good.
It's great.
Last year it was 102%. Like that's insane. And we all knew it was insane, but to maintain that perspective and know.
No, and none of us were having fun. Remember that. Remember we were all complaining? Yeah. No one was having fun during that. So you were like, I was looking at like pre-pandemic. So like 2019 for the summer months, like June, July, August, there were 1,355 sales in 2019 and there were 1,346 this year. So that's, you know what the difference was though? And this is kind of crazy, is the difference was back in 2019, there were 783 agents selling homes in Stark County. And this year there were 943.
And those are people who had transactions.
That had a
We have
transaction.
over 1,200 licensed agents in Stark.
Yeah,
So we're
but
up
still,
90%
yeah,
agent count wise. And so the people who aren't really doing anything are selling to a couple friends and family, that they've removed some of the margin for the rest of us. And that'll change over the course of the next year.
sure.
I had a thought.
Just diving into like the real estate's local. So I have I'm from California, unfortunately, but a lot of people like say that their market is then going to translate to the rest of the country because California runs it all.
Mhm. I've heard that.
New York
I
City
know.
and
Yeah,
Southern
it
California.
comes to my head with my brother-in-law. So like, what do you say to like those people who are from an area that is having a shift? Like you're seeing, you know, huge drops in price out there. Obviously, the
Sure.
price point's stupid out there, but like, how do you translate like what's happening here in Ohio? Because there's a lot of out-of-state money pouring into the
Mhm.
state to like what's going on in their local market.
So historically, Stark County was 2 to 3% appreciation per year, slow and steady. In fact, when I used to do CMAs back in the day, I would actually I would multiply from when they purchased it, 1.03 times 1.03 times 1.03. I mean, that was one of my methods. And also looking at taxes, because taxes were usually 10% of the value of the house. So you had all these were our old metrics. But these were little things you could do to like kind of trick out, like, where should it be? Where should it be? And it was so predictable. So then when the recession happened and we dropped approximately 10%, depending on what area you were in, you know what I mean? That threw everything off. But that used to be a fun little game to play, was that 3% appreciation. So that's more normal for us. So what's happened over the last couple of years is also not normal for us, but that doesn't mean what happened in California is going to happen here. We don't fly high and we don't fall too low because we're slow and steady.
Right.
Mhm.
The lines are much more
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Yes.
What was the number one complaint? If you were a buyer's agent last year, there is no inventory. That actually wasn't true, right? We know that because last year was like the second highest year in recent memory for number of homes sold. The problem wasn't inventory, the problem was velocity of inventory.
Mhm.
This year, the estimation is going to be 4.8 million, down from 6.1. So a modest 4.8 is still a really good year as far as movement goes. There's plenty of years in the threes that you guys have walked through. So as far as the size of the pie for people to get a piece of, we're still in a strong market, at least from a national numbers standpoint. And I think to your point, Canton and Akron areas and surrounding will get hit as hard as some might. I'm flying through this, but one thing to understand, interest rates are so expensive, things feel unapproachable. being able to understand affordability is an important skill to be able to bring to your clients. There is a formula for understanding what's called the affordability index. I don't want to nerd out on it too much right now, but being able to provide perspective to buyers who feel like I'm just going to wait until the interest rates go back to 3, which we know that that's not a helpful way to think about things. Being able to talk about, hey, not just from an interest rate standpoint, but also life in Northeast Ohio from a home ownership standpoint remains very affordable, certainly relative to other markets and other communities. So I'm not
I
gonna.
also sometimes trot out my my very first personal house interest rate in the 80s to shock some of the young people. And they're like, 15%, like, yeah, and people still bought houses. I did.
Right. Yeah, into the earlier conversation about how's the market doing, real estate is it's
Right.
personal. People ask the numbers sorts of questions, but you move because you want to move. Investing is a different game, but most transactions that happen are, hey,
Two mortgages.
we've got too much house and we need to downsize or we need to relocate. And people move for personal reasons. So we're gonna skip through affordability index. So let's talk about seller beliefs in this market. So I've got a couple on here. Inflated sense of value. They can't sell for what they want or need. They think they can sell as is without improvements. They think that marketing and open houses will be enough to sell. If they can't afford the payment, they will lose the home to foreclosure. What are other things, as you think about sellers that you're sitting down with right now, are you running into?
Like life things, so like death, divorce, job relocation.
Assisted living, going, transitioning from being, large. I just had one like that where they're not buying on the other side. So they're looking to go to a facility where they can be taken care of and don't have to have as much upkeep. So that, that was kind of weird.
What other beliefs are you having to kind of help correct or help influence? Yes, Scott.
They're afraid that if they sell their house, that they're not going to have a house to go to. I still see that, especially in some of the older people who want to downsize because they're a little behind. And so it's really talking that through and educating them. But there's a real fear that what people are facing, like, I don't want to end up not having a house and I want what I want. And I also think some people coming across people who saw their neighbors sell their house for such an amount. Their house they think is better and should still sell for that. And so giving them the understanding that there has been a shift is very important, but not talking down to that relationship and sharing in a way that they're learning from that, but not feeling like you are kind of belittling their understanding.
Right.
It's very important.
Right. The inflated sense of value is a real thing. We all run into that. What did we learn last week? The list price is actually what?
The market price.
The marketing price. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we know what you want to get. We know what you think your home is worth, but our job is marketing this home to get in front of the right type of buyer. And so as we think about marketing it in a way, it's going to sell for what it's going to sell for. We need to think through a marketing lens. I thought that was a really, really helpful takeaway. Buyer beliefs. Values may continue to go down. Plenty of time to look and buy. Seller will take almost any offer. This isn't a buyer's market. Wait for more homes to come on the market. May not be able to get a loan. Great time to invest in real estate. What are you guys seeing right now from a buyer belief standpoint? That's a buyer market specific set of beliefs. What else would you add to that currently?
It's only the first house I looked at.
Mm.
That one is a big one, especially when the market was even hotter, like it's smoldering now, but when it was a 5-alarm fire, people are like, oh, I gotta make this decision. I'm like, no, is it the right house for you is the question you need to ask. Doesn't matter what number it is. So what is it? You have to look at 100, 50, 20, a million? What?
Yeah, what's your number?
And that one gets me. I have a buyer like that right now that we've looked at, they're an online shopper. And then when we go look at a house, it's like, well, this is the only one I've looked at in person.
I think sometimes when you have somebody who's a little bit unrealistic, one of the things that you can do that I think is powerful is look up their criteria and send them everything that sold in the last year that would have met their criteria, just so that they can see, like, was there really that much out there? And then they can time it out, like how long you're willing to look.
That's a good idea.
There's the expectation of 08, 9, and 10 that houses are gonna suddenly fall. I don't wanna buy until the fall happens. When do you think that's going to happen? So again, market expectations. And I also think what Dominic said earlier, depending on what they're buying, if it's investments, I still see in the investor side, that they're selling much quicker and people are still willing to take a little bit more risk in their purchase than if you're buying for your own personal home.
I want to buy when the market's at the bottom. How do you respond to that?
So do I.
Let me know when it happens.
And just another real good one is when the seller says, but my house is much nicer and it would be worth $350. And I say, you know what, how would you buy it back for $350? Oh, no?
Yeah.
So you kind of get them real, you know what I'm saying?
That's a good one.
Yeah. So that's what you'd pay for it? I just had a lady do this to me. She was in her 80s on the duplex. And she says, you know, so of course agents, they're desperate for listings, will say whatever the seller wants to hear, which I hate doing that. But that's really the wrong approach. And so then they go down that path, and they have a horrible experience, and eventually they come back. But the point is that that even after all that, they still say, but I still think mine's nicer and I should get that. And I say, I have a question for you. Would you pay? I said, let's just knock 25,000 off that price you said. Would you be willing to pay for it? They're thinking, and they're like, well, no. And then how am I supposed to convince someone else to pay that kind of price? So you just try to get them real. And again, it's an emotional thing. There's no logic here. It's just what I think.
Yeah.
It's not like what I know.
I read an article
And,
or had a
unless you're
conversation.
God or you have a crystal ball, which I haven't ran any of those lately.
Yep.
You know, the market will be the market. Your job is to give them the information so they make an informed decision. And understanding that when the market was like it was, you know, it's just like anything. Darcy knows what I'm talking about. She's been that long now. But like if the house is on the market for like 2 minutes, it's like, and it doesn't sell, it's like, what's wrong with my house? You know, what do I need another agent? Did I pick the wrong house? I mean, what's going on? Like my neighbors are asking me, why hasn't your house sold yet?
Yep.
Am I right?
My neighbors are asking.
Yeah.
Well, I think that has to do a lot more with what we just experienced.
Yeah.
Too.
So our
Yeah.
job is to make sure they understand this isn't leading up
Yes.
to 08, this is leading up to something different.
Different.
Yeah.
Leading up like 5 and 6, which a lot of you may or may not know, you know, we had 7 months of inventory before the debacle happened. And then, you know, we had low, no look, snip loans, whatever you
It
want to
didn't
call
happen
them.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then the market dropped 15-20% overnight. People were upside down in their mortgages. That's why 35% of every home sale at that time was a damaged asset.
Mhm.
And that's how flipping came into play, toilets and peanut butter.
Right.
But it was,
Right.
Peanut butter toilet.
it was a brutal time. But now you have like in Stark County, 1.6 or 1.5 months inventory, which we know, even if foreclosures came in, we don't have a 7 months inventory. So there's no way
Mhm.
that they're gonna flip to oversupply, because that's how the price drops, is when you have too much supply, not enough demand.
No, we
So
don't even have
they-
enough buildings for it to even
well,
happen.
the
Yeah.
rate was going at 1971 levels, but besides that, the Fed raised the rate 3 clicks because they wanted to knock out all those people, just calm the market down. So
Sure.
then what did it do for rentals, Darcy?
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough. 20% was the average last year. But anyhow, I know, Darcy, this is your show, so you're not. gonna-
No, it's okay,
Next
it's
week.
okay. I'm coming next week. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sorry. but
No,
I
you're good.
just-
It's true.
There's just so much here, guys.
Yeah,
So much to chew
That's
on.
true. You could sit Dominic and I in a room and we wouldn't stop talking.
That's
to each
right,
other
that's
and
right.
Just leave them in
Tune
there.
in.
Yeah.
Kara.
I think the biggest challenge, again, and I'm gonna keep going back to this right now, especially like literally within the last month only. I feel like this has happened
Yeah.
to me. You know, we're looking at comps and they're all high because of what we just experienced the last 6 months.
Sure.
So then we price a home based off of the comparables that we're seeing and my seller is seeing. But now with all the feedback, you know, 22 showings on a brick ranch that should have sold probably in the summer at that price. But now everybody's saying too high or, so
Yep.
Yeah.
It's tricky. and it's-
now what do I say?
That's where you
What's
pull out
happening?
trend graphics. And you literally show them that this is the first time in the last 15 months that we have more inventory than we do sales. You know what I mean? Show them this quick shift that happened and talk to about, hey, you know, and the interest rates back in March, when we're looking at these numbers, that's when people were at 3%, now we're at 6%, and they lost a lot of buying power. You know, they could buy 250 and now they can only buy 175.
Darcy,
You
on
know?
your graph, when did it drop? Was it April or May?
It actually, the actual change took place really right between like June and July
Okay.
was when the numbers started to show. what was
Right,
actually
but that's-
happening.
I saw the
Yeah.
Like
That's because it went
before you
under
start popping up.
contract
Right,
in May.
right.
but-
Exactly.
lag,
So I feel
yeah.
like the real numbers won't come out until October. I feel like we don't.
So what we look
yeah.
at, because we look at results and sales and closed volume,
Sure.
that's the last thing that happens.
Yes.
The first thing that happens is what? They schedule the showing.
Mhm.
So you can, I don't know if you knew this, you can hop into showing time and you can run reports based upon
That's
price
a great
point.
idea.
And I
Yes.
looked, this was in May, I looked, normally the
Yeah.
market's heating up in May. I looked in May and I compared it to February to May, and February's gonna be slow, right?
Sure.
February had twice as many showings at the same price point in Stark County as we had in
With
May.
less inventory.
Exactly, exactly.
Wow.
And so that's like,
telling.
okay,
Yeah.
there's officially fewer people that are throwing their hats in the ring
Sure.
because of everything that's happening with the Fed and other reasons.
Sure.
The shift is on.
Yes. Yeah.
But to your point, Kara, if we're all we're doing is looking at results-based statistics.
Yes.
And appraisers are working with results-based statistics.
Yep.
We know Zillow is, then the conversation around pricing, writing offers as well as how to list, it's tricky.
Yeah.
And it requires really good scripting, for lack of better
Unfortunately,
language.
my people this month are getting
Yeah.
the,
Well, I think the other
Not
thing too,
experienced part of
and
this,
Don
really.
talked about it too. So what you have now is agents who are just like trying to just pick up listings and they're, I know we're not supposed to talk about commission, but whatever. They'll call out, well, I'll do it for blah, blah, blah. And so, I just had one last night where the lady, a newer agent asked if I would come with her on a CMA tonight. And she goes, well, this lady said that somebody told her that they would do it for 4.5, well, whatever. And of nothing anyway. And she said, she wants to know what we charge. And I said, go ahead and let her know that it's competitive and we'll talk about it tomorrow night. I need to show what my value is,
Yes.
like be able to show statistically why my homes sell for more. Well, because really, and I will say this to a seller too. Do you want the cheapest heart surgeon? Do you want the cheapest lawyer? I mean, really,
Yeah,
what are you
when I was
looking for
in the
here?
market, Dean McClayton
So,
taught me to say
yeah,
things like, yeah, you're going to your brain surgeon, what part of that
yeah,
surgery do you not want me to do?
yeah. Do you
I can
call
the
for
same
the
thing.
discount?
What do we do and what do we not do? And I've always held it right here.
Right. And so go ahead.
I think that's a great script. It's
Mhm.
competitive and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Because if price is the only value that you bring,
yes,
if that's your only value, then it's always just gonna be a race to the bottom.
right, because right now
Raise your
she's
hand if
a,
you want to be involved in that race.
no. And the other thing I'll say sometimes is, well, and I was taught this, it sounds really mean. A lot of times a weaker agent will lead with commission because that's the only value they have. So I'd rather talk about, the things, because really ultimately what you're concerned about is what you're gonna net. So I'll call that person a weaker agent.
Right. Now, also, I have someone to chime in since we
Yeah.
mentioned 2008, and we have some experienced individuals here that have been in the market a while.
Mhm.
So recently, I just saw something in the headlines. Bank of America is offering a new more lending program, right?
I saw
And
that.
did you see that? Yeah. And
Yeah.
according to their website, it's just something I thought was interesting that kind of correlated with 08. But so this little line here.
And Bank of America.
Yes, isn't that fun? I was gonna say
My
back.
favorite bank.
I didn't want to get bailed out
Groundhog
again, but
Day.
here, hold on one second. It requires no mortgage insurance or minimum credit score.
Mhm.
So they're pretty much lending based on the guidelines of like your insurance payments or your utility payments and things like that.
Mhm.
But they don't have any minimum requirements for those aspects, kind of like 08.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering how that's gonna play out.
Mhm.
Mhm. We're gonna fly real quick to hit a couple of points because I want to respect everyone's time, but you're always allowed to linger. We're gonna hit on these kind of new strategies that are required. So in addition to adopting an opportunity mindset, we're seeking the motivated. Not everybody needs to do business. And so what does it look like to have a system and a structure and a mindset and an approach where you're getting in touch with the people that are motivated? We're pricing ahead of the market, which is part of what we're touching on there. Making conditions of our listing stand out. How can you show that your listings are better than everyone else's? And we'll talk about that in week 7 with Melissa Sanford. Motivate buyers with a sense of urgency. That's you and Cindy again in week 9, and then qualify and convert leads quickly. So those are kind of the skills that we're going to zoom in on. There's like 14 slides that we didn't hit, and I realize that there's more value in processing and Q&A than there is slides, but I'll send that to everybody after the fact, provided that you gave me your email address or dropped your email in the chat. A lot to cover here, and I'm thankful that we had this amount of time. It's easy to go in a million different directions, but I hope you feel like this was today useful, but also this conversation is going to be useful. And thank you, Darcy, for helping to
Oh my gosh, my pleasure.
provide some framing. Yeah, Don. Yeah.
So Darcy,
Dominant.
Dome.
so this is just in closing. I just need to hear her advice. So where do we go from here?
Oh, well then, since you asked. I had some notes and it was some things we really didn't touch on. And so because I was reading through the shift and I was reading through some of the things that you were sending me, and it was saying, that economic shifts can feel unpredictable, indefinite, and overwhelming. And so that was where kind of mindset came in right from there. And I was kind of always trained in this thoughts are things. Whatever you think about expands. If you're going to buy a minivan, all you see on the road is minivans. If I ask someone, hey, what can I do to improve my business? All they hear about is Darcy Friel and real estate that day, because what you think about expands. One of the examples I was given, and this is my dad again, but it was who I was trained by, was he would say, just for a moment, just picture a lemon, and think about peeling the skin off the lemon. And the way that it smells, and now go ahead and take a big bite of the lemon, and you're all salivating right now. If I had slowed down a lot, you'd be salivating more, but you know what I mean? But the idea is that you can taste the lemon because thoughts are things. So if you wake up with, kind of like, hate to be like, I feel like the guy in, the Show Me the Money movie was like, I wake up with joy in my heart, but kind of that idea that when you wake up and you're like, okay, this is going to be a fun day. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be, kind of having a positive attitude right out of the gate, because why not? It's a lot more fun that way. But thinking to yourself, like, who am I going to meet today? Who am I going to help today? Be the person that notices when someone drops it, pick the thing up for them. We are in a service industry, so serve. So kind of get over yourself, look for who you can serve. If you don't have anything to do that day, find someone to help that day. Yeah. Keep fear at bay. Don't let yourself get afraid. If you're reading stuff that's fear-based, don't read it. That's all the media is right now. So stop doing that. So do whatever you have to do. Get into Bible studies, read self-help books, get the Calm app, get whatever start working out, take a run, take your dog on a walk, call your mom, but do something that you want to run towards, not the things that you want to run away from. And so that was kind of that swallow the frog, and keep your eyes on the target. And we were talking about how I went, again, back when I used to work out, back when I used to run or be in track, it was kind of a joke with my family that a lot of times I'd be winning the race, but then I'd hear footsteps behind me. So I'd turn around to see who it was out of curiosity, I guess. And that would always slow me down. And I would lose races sometimes that way. And we were my son he plays football and he's a running back, and he was playing this past week, and my dad's sitting next to me. And I go, don't turn around, because he turned around while he was carrying the ball. And he got tackled. My dad goes, who do you think you got that from? And so anyway, so don't turn around. Don't pay attention to what everybody else is doing. Who cares about what their numbers are? I don't look at what everybody else's numbers are, other than to just see what's happening with the market and to say, hey, what's this about? Yep. What I'm looking at is what's my percentage of the market? How's my market changing? So compare yourself year over year to your own market, and don't look at what everybody else is doing. Look at your own, and really focus more, not so much on how much can I sell and how much, don't even think about the money. Don't think about the money. Don't count your sales until it's closed. Think about how many people can I help and how well can I help them? What can I do to serve them, whether I get the listing or not? Because your biggest advocates, your very best advocates, most often aren't the people who even bought houses from you. They're the people who you said, don't sell your house right now. It's not a good time for you. Or, you know what, how about this? I know somebody. Or, you know what, I'm going to just help you out with your for sale by owner. Or, you know what I mean? Do the right thing, take care of people, and they will take care of you. And that is all my business is at this point. It is people just taking care of me. And I'm so thankful for it. So just be in it long enough, stick with it, and just keep helping people. So
I got one other final thought then. That was very powerful, by the way. Mm-hmm. Don't study the roots, gather the fruit.
There's a Dominic.
That was fantastic.
Okay,
very good, Darcy.
Yeah, thank
Darcy,
you.
I'm well worth. I'm glad.
Yeah. I wish we had 2 hours, honestly.
Thanks.
I'll email this to everyone. Next week, same time at our office on Higbee, 4974 Higbee, Suite 201. It'll be in a follow-up email to everybody. But yeah, commit to learning and learning from one another.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Nice
Thank
work.
you.
Awesome.
Darcy,
Thank you.
first class.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, so I have a-
See you next week.
See you, Dominic.
Bye, Dom.
Hey, thanks for marking it on.
Of course.